Hi, welcome. It's Mike Newton back in the swing studio here at Barrow Golf Club. Today we're just going to talk a little bit about the new Cleveland RTX-3 Wedge and the wedge fitting bag that Cleveland offer. Now, Cleveland are one of the only companies to offer a wedge fitting system, really, which comprises lots of different heads, different lofts, different bounce and grinds, along with various different wedge shafts. To obviously really dial in exact sort of spin numbers and gapping from your iron set into wedges, whether that's a pitching wedge gap, sand or lob. So just want to maybe just talk a little bit about these grinds, really, just to help you sort of understand maybe what you want to go and look at when you do go for a wedge fitting, and also maybe how a particular grind will suit a certain action, which again it all comes back to you need to go and get fit, really. Okay, so just walking over to our custom shaft wall here and the components of the heads and our wedge fitting cart, you can see we've got 9 different heads here, and as you can see, I'm just zooming a little bit closer, you've got different lofts here. So you've got 48s, 52s, 56s, a few there, 58s, more 58s, 60s, and then we've got a left hand 56 here. And what you'll probably see closer here, we've got different dot numbers. So we've got 2 dot, 3 dot and 1 dot. That's the bounce, which is a system that Cleveland have done for a few years now. But also maybe to make it a little bit easier, because other brands talk a lot about grinds. So what Cleveland have introduced now is an MG, so it's a 2 dot MG, which stands for mid grind. And then we've got a 3 dot, which is FG, full grind. And then we've got 1 dot, which is LG, which is low grind. So we're just going to talk a little bit and just show you the differences of what the sole does between these different grinds, and maybe how that will affect turf interaction on your sort of golf shots. Okay, so we're just going to start with the LG, which is the low grind, or the 1 dot bounce option here. So if we look at the sole here, they've introduced this VT sole that you'll see in the Srixon range here, and they've introduced this into the Cleveland wedges now. So this peak of the V sole, if I show you from this angle here, you can see how it sort of peaks off there. So this peak and where it runs through the sole moves from front to back of the wedge, depending on which grind and which number of dot bounce you've got. So this is an LG low grind, which is a 1 dot. Okay, so basically this sort of peak of this V is moved more towards the front edge. Okay, so ultimately that's giving you a lower bounce option. So this is maybe suited more for a golfer with a sort of shallow angle of attack, maybe somebody who scoops the ball, doesn't take a lot of divot or very little interaction with the ground, maybe somebody who plays off some tighter surfaces like a links course where some more barrier lies. You generally might go into more of a low bounce. What I sort of found with a lot of golfers here, this is probably the more uncommon option out of the 3 different grinds that they offer. Personally, I am a little bit steeper. I did go to a low bounce option in my lob wedge, and I found it a bit of a struggle. It was too sharp, too sharp a leading edge. The strikes had to be absolutely perfect. If I was a touch heavy, I just fatted it. So I always think bounce is your friend. So this may not be the most popular option, but I'm sure it will suit some golfers out there who have a particular low or shallow angle of attack. Just moving on into the 2 dot bounce option here. So there's a 2 dot, which is an MG mid grind. And what we'll see here now is with this sort of peak of the sole, the V section, you can see how it's moved further away from the leading edge now, so it's more towards that back edge. I'll just get that 1 dot back up and just pop them side by side here. You'll probably just get the right camera angle here. There we go. You can see the difference of where that peak of the V runs through the sole. So with the 2 dot, it's moved further back, so basically that's giving you a slightly more bounce at the front of the club, and that back edge is getting lower and a bit further back. So this is the more common option here. So 2 dot is sort of suitable for most ground conditions, and sort of an average angle of attack, really. Okay, so this is a 56-degree sand wedge. This has got 11 bounce in the mid grind. The 1 dot low grind had an 8 bounce. So it's 3 degrees difference of the bounce here. Okay, so as I say, this is probably going to be the more popular one. This sort of suits most golfers and most sort of turf conditions. So maybe somebody who's playing different courses all the time, say the home course is a links course, so they might want to go into a 1-dot bounce that we just talked about, but if they go away and play a lusher grass parkland, softer ground condition, they might struggle with that. So this is a little bit more versatile. If you're a golfer that wants to play different courses or does play different courses, that's probably a better option. Okay, then we finally move into the 3-dot bounce, which is called the FG, which is full grind. So let's just see how that sole moves here. So you can see now that peak of the V sole is actually right on that back edge. So it's moved as far away from that leading edge as possible here. So that gives it a full bounce option here. You can see that real more severe sort of angle there. And this is now a 14-degree, get it in the right angle. There you go, 14-degree bounce on again on the 56. Now these bounce numbers change depending on which loft you've got in your hands. I've got 3 56s here, but obviously if you go into a 50 and a 2-dot, it's a lower than a 2-dot number on a 56, if you understand what I mean. Because obviously sand wedge is different and wants more bounce because it's generally more your bunker shots. But I'm just doing a comparison here between the 3 lofts of the 56. So this is your 3-dot full bounce. So this is very much aimed at a golfer who has a steeper angle attack. You don't want that leading edge to be too sharp if you're steep, because it's just going to dig. So that's where more bounce there is going to help the wedge to sort of interact with the ground and sort of bounce back up and out. So there's not as much digging there happening. And maybe aimed at somebody who plays more of the golf on sort of lusher grass, softer ground conditions, maybe more of a parkland sort of course really. So it's a little bit more forgiving, I would say. Obviously, if you did play on a links course and you got a real bare lie, this might be a little bit more daunting because you produce that down on the ground. You can see that leading edge just sits up in the air a little bit more, which can be a little bit scary on those real tight lies, which again is why probably the 2-dot is a bit more versatile for all lies and all options really. But having said that, the more bounce is your friend, because if you do catch these shots slightly heavy, the bounce, how it sort of works, it'll hit the ground, it sort of skids along, so you still get a fairly decent connection and a fairly decent result. Whereas if that was a very sharp edge and you hit behind the ball too much, you'd dig. There's obviously then a lot of turf between club and ball. You're not hitting your desired distance. Okay, I hope you found that. I just want to do a separate video there just to talk a little bit about these grinds. It can be sometimes a little bit confusing with all the different options and maybe, well, what is the right option for me? So I just wanted to maybe just explain that in a little bit more detail for you. So hopefully you found that video quite useful there, and maybe choosing your decision. But again, as I said earlier, it's probably always wise to go and see a fitter, somebody who's got a wedge fitting cart with all these different options. Maybe somebody who can measure on a launch monitor is ideal as well, because obviously there is a lot of loft options that Cleveland offer with different grinds. There's obviously black finish, black satin and satin chrome options as well. Nothing different on performance or price, it's just a general look. So you've got to go and try these yourself. Get a gap fitting test done. That is so crucial to make sure you're getting the right lofts here. Thanks for watching, guys. Please share this video around with friends if you feel it's useful. Please hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you all very soon.